Hi guys! Today I am going to be reacting to a bunch of your unpopular beauty community opinions. I have done a few of these on my channel in the past, but it has been so long and I wanted to film another one because these are, I always like hearing what people's unpopular opinions are of the moment. So let's discuss and possibly argue in this video. There's a music commentary YouTuber, Anthony Fantano. I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard of him because he's really well known. But he does these videos called Let's Argue, where he argues with his subscribers' unpopular opinions. So I might be stealing that title. Hopefully he doesn't mind. Also, say goodbye. I'm getting this hair chopped off tomorrow. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I am sick of it. Let's start with one that got a lot of thumbs up, which actually probably means it's not that unpopular of an opinion. I also agree with this one. Almost nobody needs bronzing drops. They're just another thing to add to a routine and make people buy, but very few people actually have a use for it. And if they do, they can probably find something else in their collection that does a similar job. I completely agree. I think the bronzing drop craze is a little out of control because, first of all, bronzing drops are really no different from liquid bronzers. They're just marketed in a new way. I think this just keeps happening in the beauty industry where one product goes viral. In this case, it was the Drunk Elephant de-bronzy drops or whatever they're called. Those went viral on TikTok, even though they've been out for like literal years. And now every brand has to come out with their version of it. And so naturally, influencers feel obligated to review bronzing drops and of course add to the hype. I'm guilty of this too. I have received a couple bronzing drops in PR and I have reviewed them on my channel because, you know, I figure people are probably interested in hearing how they work. But I agree that bronzing drops are really unnecessary. To me, they just don't really make a whole lot of sense used the way that they're, I think, intended to be used, which is either just slathered all over the face or mixed with a moisturizer. Unless you already have a pretty tan complexion, most bronzing drops are going to have to be diluted by being mixed in with like a moisturizer or serum or maybe your foundation, but then you're just essentially using them as a foundation darkener, which is useful if you have foundations that are too light. But I think most bronzing drops are kind of meant to be used mixed in with your moisturizer. So if I'm mixing something with my moisturizer, if I'm wearing a moisturizer at all, that's going to go under my SPF. So by the time I've applied that, and then my SPF on top, the bronzing drops are going to be pretty much gone. Like, they're going to just be mixed in with everything else on my face. And I don't really need to bronze up my face unless my body is self-tanned and I want to match my face to my body. But then I'm going to be putting my foundation over that, which is going to further cover it up. I do like the Glow Recipe Hue Drops because they don't have to be diluted. They're already sheer enough for me that they don't give a very intense bronze look to my face. And so I can apply it just like a serum. And it's actually nice to wear under foundations that are a little bit too dark for me, like the CoverGirl Simply Ageless foundation. It kind of like evens it out. And I also like the look of those Glow Recipe ones on a no makeup day because it just kind of gives my skin a believable glow, but it doesn't look like my face is like way darker than my body. So those are the only ones I really like to use all over my face like that. Other bronzing drops, I really prefer to just use them as a liquid bronzer. But liquid bronzers have been around for ages, and in that case, you know, bronzing drops are really nothing. They're not bringing anything new to the table, they just have a new name. What is happening? This has happened to me a few times with this Milk Makeup Hydro Grip Primer, and I'm confused because I am wearing sunscreen underneath. It's the Isntree Onion New Pair sunscreen. This is the second time this has happened with this primer. And the first time it happened with the Urban Decay Face Bond foundation. Now it's happening with the LYS Triple Fix foundation, and I don't know if I just didn't blend it in well enough, or if it's just reacting weirdly with my foundation, but look at, it's like caked on my face where I applied the primer. And look at, I think this happened in my last Everyday Makeup Drawer video, the Get Ready With Me, at the end. It's like caking together. I'm gonna have to wash this off and start over, because this is not gonna work. Okay, I'm back. Let's try this again. I think this primer, I think what's happening is it's not interacting well with my sunscreens. And that's why I don't really like wearing primer on top of sunscreen. But I don't know, I've just been trying to use this more because I do want to, you know, not just let it sit in a drawer. But honestly, I think this primer works best if you're not wearing sunscreen. So for me, I wear sunscreen pretty much every day, but in the winter time, A lot of days I don't go outside very much, and the UV index is like 2 all day, every day, and the sun sets at like 4 p.m. So I have a lot more days in the winter where I'm applying makeup and it just doesn't really make sense to apply sunscreen underneath it. So that's really when I use this the most. But I think what's been happening is when I apply this over sunscreen, I try not to really rub it back and forth. I try to more like pat it into my skin, but it's just not mixing well with these sunscreens. So I'm not going to wear this primer today. Speaking of things that are unnecessary in our routines, for me, I know primer is a necessary step for a lot of people, but for me, primer is just kind of something I can kind of take it or leave it. So I now have on the Bar Centella sunscreen. I washed my sponge so it doesn't have the weirdness all over it. And I still want to wear my LYS foundation today, so let's do that. Going back to your opinions, the trend for cream and liquid blush, bronzer, highlighter, eyeshadow, etc. seems to be a way to get us to buy all new makeup that has a much shorter shelf life. I have enough powder, blush, and highlighter to last me years and looks just fine. I don't know if I would agree that the cream makeup trend is merely a conspiracy to make us all buy makeup more often. I don't think that's true, just because, I mean, cream makeup has been around for decades and decades. I will say, like, I've had a lot of cream products over the years, and I know, like, I try to be aware that they are supposed to expire more quickly than powders, but honestly, I have had so few, I can't even think of any cream cheek products or even cream eyeshadows that have visibly expired on me. Like, typically, I mean, lipstick, I will say I do notice sometimes like a change in smell. But when it comes to cream blush, I've had some cream blushes for like 3 or 4 years and they still haven't really expired. So, I mean, yeah, I think we do need to be more particular about how much we're buying in the cream makeup categories. I don't think I would agree that it's some kind of ploy to get us to buy more makeup more often. Okay, I'm just doing a quick Google search here. According to Google's AI, which may or may not be that accurate, cream blush became popular during the Victorian era, along with powder blush. Regardless of when cream blush was invented, cream blush is not new. Cream blush has been popular, I think, especially among makeup artists for decades. Yeah, I don't really agree. I do think, of course, we all need to be mindful of how much we're buying. And, you know, keeping in mind that creams technically can expire faster than powders. You can't really sanitize cream makeup in the same way as with powder makeup. You can spritz it with isopropyl alcohol. Creams technically can't be sanitized in that same way. But I still think I love cream makeup. I find that it just looks so beautiful. I love the way it melts into my skin and it just looks so cohesive. So I'm never giving up my cream cheek products. Beauty creators, especially large and mid-sized creators, play a significant role in the lack of inclusiveness that makeup companies get away with. I mean, if you know a bronzer has one shade, why are you promoting and reviewing it when most people cannot use it? I'm not saying people have to always boycott whole brands, but even just like, I'm not going to review or feature this product on my channel because the shade selection is insulting, goes a far way. Okay, I agree with this one. I would say, you know, what gets under my skin is when a creator is reviewing something and they mention that the shade range is bad, but they feature it and review it and even recommend it anyway. Because, like, if you don't care, then why mention the shade range at all, you know? And I'm not saying I'm, like, the perfect judge of a good shade range at all. To me, what makes a good shade range, or at least an acceptable shade range, it's not about the number of shades, right? Because something could have 50 shades, like a foundation could come in 50 shades and still not be inclusive. As long as something has a somewhat balanced gradient from light to very deep, it shows that a brand is trying. But especially when it comes to bronzers, blushes, even highlighters, I think brands have a long way to go in actually being inclusive. Because, you know, I think brands haven't been as able to get away with poor shade ranges in complexion products like foundations and concealers. I think the industry, I mean, there's still a long way to go, but I think things have improved in that area. But when it comes to cheek products, especially bronzers and especially at the drugstore, but high-end brands like Hourglass are guilty of this too, of just not having enough of a bronzer shade range that's going to work for enough skin tones. And so I try not to feature those on my channel. But yeah, I agree. I think if a creator is going to mention caring about shade ranges at all, like, at least don't feature products that don't have good shade ranges. I mean, I feel like it's as simple as that. Calling someone trashy is trashier than big lashes, heavy foundation, bold eyeshadow, etc., and your makeup taste, whatever it is, or however it compares to what's currently in, does not make you more interesting or special than anyone else. Are people calling people trashy over their makeup now? I mean, I'm sure they are. I'm not surprised. Full disclosure, I don't open TikTok really ever. Like, once every few months I'll open the app, but I will say I'm a little out of the loop when it comes to, like, what's happening on TikTok, and so maybe you're talking about something that's happening on TikTok. But yeah, I completely agree. Just let people wear what they like. Why is that so hard? Why is that such a difficult concept? I don't care what other people do with their makeup. Whether it's something that I would wear or not, like, I don't care. It doesn't affect me in any way. Speaking of TikTok, since I'm apparently in the mood to rant about TikTok, TikTok is a horrible platform for makeup reviews. The algorithm rewards quick, constant content and big reactions over fair critique and useful information. I agree. Now, I think that there's valuable content on TikTok, just like there's valuable content on Instagram, Reels, and YouTube Shorts. I think it's certainly possible to create valuable short-form content, but the way the algorithm is set up, and I think this is true for YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels algorithm to an extent as well, people have become so obsessed with getting a lot of views at any cost that they're really just making content for the algorithm. And that's why I don't like using TikTok, but I also just prefer YouTube as a platform. And now that YouTube has Shorts, I'm happy to just post my short form content on YouTube Shorts because I just think YouTube as a platform is a little bit more established, and there's just not quite as much misinformation going completely unchecked on YouTube. Yes, there is still misinformation no matter what social media platform you're on, but TikTok is just a little out of control, and that's why I just don't like it. Okay, we got a couple about the whole blush blindness thing. Blush blindness is a silly trend. If somebody wants to load up on blush, that's a specific and purposeful look that I lean into sometimes that is over-labeled as a mistake or regret. I agree. I mean, this just goes back to just let people wear what they want. I've also heard of brow blindness where, the brow trends change so much from year to year, and if you look across decades, I mean, the brow trends have just been all over the place. And I do think that this kind of thing can come from a lighthearted place of even just poking fun at your past self for the way that you wore your makeup a long time ago. For me, I definitely had brow blindness back in the day. I really don't feel like I honed my brow technique up until very recently, and even still, brows are just so hard. They're the hardest part of makeup, in my opinion. I think where this becomes less of just a lighthearted way of poking fun at yourself is when it crosses over into criticizing other people for the way they do their makeup. And that just goes back to, can we just let people like and wear what they like? I don't think there's anything wrong with a heavy blush look. I mean, here I am loading up on blush. I just love blush, okay? This is the Kokie Soft Gradient Blush in Bellissima. The epitome of sunburnt blush. I love it so much. I still want to repress this though, because it's a little dark for me on this side, and so sometimes I end up with just too dark of a blush. Speaking of blush, there is no reason to spend over $10 on a blush. Yeah, having tried a lot of makeup over the years, I think what I've gathered is that some categories of makeup seem easier for brands to formulate at a lower cost than others, and blush is one of those things. There is just so much good blush at the drugstore. I mean, this one right here is I think $8. So that's under the $10 price range. I have a lot of blushes under $10 that I love. That being said, I think it's fine to splurge on high-end blush. I have some high-end blushes that I love and adore and cherish. And that's just... that highlighter is so pretty. This is the Athr Beauty Pink Diamond Dust highlight. Ooh, okay. When content creators say their tastes have changed over time, what they really mean is that they've fallen for the marketing and trends that large corporations have pushed to promote overconsumption. Huh. I would have to say I disagree. I mean, I also say my tastes have changed all the time. I feel like I say that in a lot of videos, so I definitely think, we can't ignore the role that marketing from corporations and also from influencers, which is often tied into corporations, we can't ignore the role that marketing plays in the way that our tastes change over time and the way that marketing influences trends. I'm looking in the viewfinder and I'm like, damn, do I have blush blindness right now? I think I am going to buff a little bit of my Essence Brighten Up Banana Powder on top of this blush, just to soften it a bit, because like I said, sometimes this blush just gets a little too dark too quickly, even though I love the tone of it so much. But I also think that trends naturally change over time. I mean, that's just the way the world works. I think it's fun to try out different trends and see what you think of them and put your own spin on them. I don't think following trends is inherently a bad thing. I mean, trends have been evolving since the dawn of time. So I don't think that when someone's tastes evolve over time, even if they do evolve along with current trends, I think there's a difference between just blindly following trends because they're trends and taking trends and adapting them to your own personal style. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I don't agree that just because someone's tastes have changed over time that just means that they're falling for corporate marketing and that's it. Like I said, we certainly can't ignore the role that corporate marketing plays in the way that our tastes change, the products that are available on the market at any given time. But also, brands are constantly improving formulas to be more up to date, and some things that were amazing 5 or 6 years ago, because that's what was available on the market, like I'm thinking of highlighter specifically. Highlighter has come a long way since, when was highlighter invented? Probably many, many years ago. But in 2016, I remember that was the first I had ever heard of highlighter as someone who'd been wearing makeup since like 2008 or 2009. Highlighter really became popular in like 2015 or 2016. And the highlighters that were popular back then don't hold up compared to the ones that have come out more recently, because brands have been improving upon their formulas since that time. And I don't think there's anything wrong with updating your preferences to fit with the times. I really don't. So I just went in with the Kaja Wink Dazzle in Mocha Sparkle. I have such a love-hate relationship with this because I adore this color so much. This is like the most beautiful everyday beige matte eyeshadow base. I love this color by itself, but I also really like it as a base for any kind of like warm caramely look, which I love wearing in the summer. However, it doesn't have great staying power, so I always apply it over my Milani eyeshadow primer. Even then, sometimes it doesn't have great staying power, but then typically if I apply powder eyeshadows over it, it's fine. So that's what we're doing today. Still trying to decide if I want to keep that in my collection. I probably will keep this in my collection unless and until I find a similar color cream eyeshadow that has better staying power, but in the meantime, I'll keep using this one. I pulled out a few different palettes to potentially use. I pulled out my custom 9 pan that I put together for my everyday makeup rotation. I pulled out my Sigma Ambiance palette, which I love pairing with that Kaja eyeshadow stick. Oh, yes. Also pulled out my Essence Coral Me Maybe palette because I feel like I haven't been using this enough and I really want to. And then I also pulled out my Flower Desert Lights palette. So I'm gonna just see where the wind takes me, but first I'm gonna dip into the Essence palette first because I just feel like I've been neglecting this poor palette and I love it. So I'm gonna go in with this tan matte in the crease. Just gonna warm up a little bit. I'm gonna dip into this deep brown and just kind of build that up here in the outer corner. Under eye concealer doesn't look good up close in person. I would say I actually agree. A lot of the time it really doesn't. And this is such a battle for me because I have super dark circles and I like covering them up. Like I like having my under eyes look nice and brightened and concealed. Like I enjoy having that as part of my makeup routine. But what I've come to find is it's really all in how you apply your under eye products. So for me, the fewer layers of stuff I have on my face, whether it's my under eyes or any part of my face, the better everything sits on my skin. So when it comes to under eye concealer, I really I don't do a ton of skincare on my under eyes in the morning. I don't do an eye cream. I wear eye cream at night, but in the morning I just do either a light layer of moisturizer and then my sunscreen, or I'll just use my sunscreen as my under eye moisturizer. I'm actually going to go in with MakeupGeek Grandstand here from my Singles palette. I think that's going to be my lid shade today. Oh yes, that is gorgeous. And then, I guess I could have probably answered this one while I was doing my under eye concealer, but you know what? That's okay. Then I use the smallest amount of under eye concealer possible to still get the coverage that I want. And some formulas are better than others. I think, as I've started to get more fine lines on my under eyes, really the best under eye concealers are the ones that are more of a thin, gel-like consistency, like the NYX Bare With Me Serum Concealer. That's my absolute favorite because it just looks way better up close than most under eye concealers do. And I really try, I have the most fine lines right underneath my lower lash line. So I really try to focus my under eye concealer on the rest of my under eye, but not so much right up against the lash line because I'm gonna blend it out, but I want the majority of the product to be on this dark circle, not in my fine lines. So I do that, and then when I apply my color corrector, I also focus that right here on this lowest, for me this is where my under eye meets the rest of my face. That's where I like to apply my under eye corrector. So not right in those creases, but in the actual darkest part of my eye. And then I tap it out and it blends out, but I have way less product in those fine line areas. I try to follow the same thing when I'm applying foundation. My real problem area with complexion is around my mouth, my chin, my upper lip, my smile lines, this whole area is what looks bad. So coincidentally, I also don't have nearly as much to cover in those areas. So I really try to apply less product to this area compared to, say, the sides of my cheeks where I do have more discoloration. Those are the areas, the areas where I actually want coverage. That's where I focus my product, and then I blend the whole thing out, but I'm ending up with much less product in those problem areas. So that is the strategy I have come to use. I still think that sometimes, I will look up close to my under eyes at the end of the day and be like, wow, that doesn't look great, does it? But following those steps, it definitely does help. And I am not giving up under eye concealer. So I actually ended up only using my single palette with really one shade in there and the Essence Coral Me Maybe palette. And I actually really like this look. Very summery. This is my favorite kind of look in the summertime. Alright, for my lips, I'm going to do a combo of Jones Road Nudist lip pencil with the Tarte Maracuja Juicy Lip Plump in White Peach. I think that's going to complete this look really nicely. Okay, I actually love the way this look turned out. It's always a mixed bag when I'm filming a Get Ready With Me because sometimes my makeup turns out absolutely terrible because I am too distracted by talking. But I actually love this look, especially the eye look. This is just, ooh, so warm. But anyway, thank you all so much for sharing your unpopular opinions. I love filming these videos. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Also, I do have a Patreon and a channel membership if you want even more content from me. I post a vlog and makeup video every month for my patrons and members, so I would love to have you over there as well. Otherwise, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye!